Idyllwild Arts respectfully acknowledges the Kawishpa Kawiakna, also known as Kaweah Band of Indians, and all 9 sovereign bands of Kaweah people who have stewarded this land throughout the generations and continue to steward this land for all future generations.
Idyllwild Arts Foundation is proud to present One World, One Idyllwild, the series, in conversation with Pamela Jordan. The series brings together thought leaders, creatives, influencers, and changemakers, highlighting the work of citizen artists whose careers and lives have been shaped by the transformative power of art.
Today I'm speaking with Thanh Bui, an award-winning Australian-Vietnamese singer-songwriter with numerous gold records and #1 hit songs around the world. Thanh, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
It's such a pleasure, Pamela. Thank you for having me on this show. Thank you.
I had the privilege of attending your educational forum in 2018, and I was struck by your passion and vision for the youth of Vietnam. So I'm really looking forward to sharing your story with our listeners today. So let's start at the beginning. Your parents, I believe you told me your parents left Vietnam around 1981, and you were born shortly thereafter, a year and a half, 2 years. Tell me that story.
So, Vietnam at that time, we were just coming out of the Vietnam War, and my parents were part of the people that wanted to find a new life, new opportunities. So they left as refugees. In 1981, they got to Bidong on this little boat with about 100 other people. And it's one of those stories that still resonates with me today in terms of my sense of identity, who I am, where I come from. And they were fortunate that they survived, because 50% of the people that left the shores didn't, And so they got to Bidong at the refugee camp, and then they were fortunate to go to Australia. And it was then when they got to Australia that my mother always tells me very proudly, son, you were conceived the very first day you got to Melbourne. So you're an Aussie boy and you're a Vietnamese boy at the same time. So that's the story. I was, literally 9 months, 10 days later, after arriving in Melbourne, I popped into the world. So hello, world.
Now we know where all the energy comes from. So, and you embraced music at a very young age. Were your parents supportive of your desire to be a musician?
To be honest with you, I was just very fortunate to have the opportunities in Australia to have contact with music. So I remember as a 5-year-old, every kid would get a recorder and a guitar. And, and then I had people, my teachers, identify that I was kind of okay at it. And I remember having my first piano lesson by a sister. So I went to a Catholic school, and the Catholic school, supported my education, and it was from there that I really got into music, and I loved it. I wouldn't say that I had the support of mum and dad to become a musician, but I remember that as a young age, they supported me just to do whatever I wanted to do, to learn whatever that I wanted to learn. And it wasn't until much later, when I was about 17, and I was sitting with my friends for the first time singing karaoke in Melbourne, and I was singing a Boys to Men song. Because I'm a huge Boys to Men fan. I was singing "End of the Road," Boys to Men, and my after I sang the song, there was silence, and I'm like, was I that bad that I couldn't get some kind of round of applause? But then I realized that my mates were completely shocked that sort of came out, and that feeling that they gave me, and all that kind of stuff, plus the fact that I always admired people like Stevie Wonder, Ray Charles, Michael Jackson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I always wanted to sort of be an artist. But it was that night, as a 17-year-old, that I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a good red shot, and I'm going to do it. But that same summer, when I got my marks from year 12, I knew that I had to convince mum and dad that this is what I wanted to do. So I sat down with them, And I remember very clearly, it was like, this warm day in Melbourne, and I knew I had the marks to get into medicine. That's what mother wanted me to do, to be the typical doctor, and dad wanted me to be to do commerce law. And I sat down and I said to them, Mum and Dad, I really appreciate what you want for me, but I want to become an artist, a singer-songwriter. And then you had this deathly silence for about 2 minutes. And they literally just said, if you want to do that, then you can leave. And I'm like, what do you mean leave? And they go, well, if you want to do that, then you can leave. Meaning go, leave, do it. And that was many years later. I thought, mother would sit down with me and said, that was just her saying, just testing me out. But she didn't expect me to actually leave. But that's exactly what happened. And I came back literally 8 years later, and I said to her, look, I've done A, B, C, D. I've signed my first record deal, second record deal, done this, my publishing, blah 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 blah. And finally, as a 25-year-old, I came back and I said, and we made peace, and so that's sort of the quick story in terms of trying to do music, because I was an Asian kid growing up in an Australian society, and obviously, we are a minority in Australia, and so I always felt a little bit left out. I always felt that, how am I going to break into music? And my mother would constantly tell me, son, there's no one on TV. There's no Asian artists that are broken internationally. So what makes you think you can do it? So just don't think in the clouds. Don't just go get a good job, become a doctor, make a good living, and live better than the way that we used to live. Because mum and dad didn't have an education. They came to Australia with no language, nothing. They were potato pickers. They worked on the farms. Then they learned how to sew jeans. And so for many, many years, we were living in these sweatshops, making jeans for $3, $4, $5 a pop, and surviving, and very lucky to sort of get through all those situations. So mother just wanted me to, pick up the pen, write something, and feel better about life and have a different status in society. And I said to her, look, mother, I'd rather live die than live a life half lived. And when I sort of think back as a 17-year-old and standing up to your mother like that, I'm like, woo, okay.
So that is just a heartwarming story, and it speaks volumes to young people who really have that passion. So many of our students at Idyllwild Arts, of course, they have the support of their parents to even attend a school like this, but they often leave, friends at home, family at home, who feel the same, go into something that's more secure. But that passion, you've described that passion that a young person has when they know they want to do that. And talking about singing with your mates, tell us about one of the things that you did was you competed in Australian Idol. And especially as an Asian Australian, you actually placed in the top 10.
Pamela, I have to say that doing Australian Idol, was the most scariest thing I'd ever done in my life. And even thinking back now, when I look at the clips, I just see this younger version of me, so uncomfortable, so not vulnerable enough. And what Idol was this opportunity for me to understand what it meant to be an artist. Because for many years prior to that, I traveled the world, and I'd worked with many artists throughout different territories, and I sort of thought about it, and I thought, well, what am I doing? I'm actually running away from the dream that got me started. I wanted to always be a solo artist, not to be in a boy band, not to be standing behind somebody else. Because when you're writing and you're producing, you're in the background. And I kind of said to myself, look, you just give it a go. And so when I did Idol, that year, I remember, I think there was about 32,000 applicants and auditionees. And when I got through to the top 100, I'm like, oh, this is cool. Okay. this is I'm doing all right, yeah. And then I got down to the top 32. I'm like, okay, this is getting serious. When you're just having fun and you don't think you're going to get anywhere, you're so free. But when you start getting some expectations, you start to go, oh, I better prepare for it. I better do this. I better do that. I got to the top 24, then I got to the top 12. And for me, it was such an amazing learning experience because, first of all, I had to literally grow up on TV. And it was this feeling of learning how to deal with criticism that at that time I've failed to do that. I found it so difficult to be told that this is not right, you're like this, you're like that, you're too this, you're too that. And so what it got me to do was to start to understand the definition of what it means to be an artist, and it's called being vulnerable. So I learned to be vulnerable, and and I'm so thankful for that experience. I met some of my all-time idols. I met Cyndi Lauper, and I sat there and she was just telling me, "Time, you're so uptight, man. Come on." And she was shaking me and she was just telling me, you got the vibe, you got the talent, you got the voice, you got you got it all, but it's about the vehicle that you express this through, Time, and you just gotta chill out, Time. And then I met Savage Garden, I met Darren Hayes, and I grew up with this music, singing his beautiful falsetto and learning so much from the way he sings. And I'm sitting there, and this guy is so vulnerable, and it was so easy to connect with as a human being, and it was amazing. And I think the other thing that really helped me during that time was the actual support from my own community, because the Vietnamese community was literally the first time that a Vietnamese Australian had sort of done something like that in the field of music, arts, entertainment. And I will always remember this anecdote, which I'll quickly share. I would go into the Vietnamese community and have a bowl of pho, yeah. And so I'd come in, and they'd all be clapping, and I always felt, oh, thank you. I sit down, and this lady, and she's in her 50s, she comes up to me. And she puts she actually puts a letter on my table, and I say, hello, lovely to meet you. And she goes, I open the letter, and in the letter there's a phone bill, and I'm like, she goes, Tom, I think you owe me some money. I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, laughing and smiling and trying to understand. She goes, I voted for you. I voted a lot for you. I spent a lot of money voting for you. Now it's time to pay me back. And it was, those are the things that made me realize, oh, wow, this is beautiful. And what my own Vietnamese community sort of gave me was this sense of, Tom, you're Vietnamese. And you need to reconnect back with your roots, because at that particular time, I had literally nothing to do with my culture. I could barely speak the language at that time, because I'd been out of home for a long time, and I wasn't living in Vietnamese communities. I was living in more Anglo-Saxon communities, doing the work, being in the industry. So it was Idol that really kick-started for me this whole thing about who am I. And it's those moments that you start to realize as an artist to be vulnerable, which means that you got to look deep inside. And that's when I really started my artistic journey, during Idol and post-Idol.
My guest today is Thanh Bui, an Australian-Vietnamese singer-songwriter with numerous gold records and #1 hits. We'll be right back.
Idyllwild Arts Academy is an independent boarding arts high school whose mission is to change lives through the transformative power of art. Located just 2 hours inland from Los Angeles and San Diego, and 1 hour from Palm Springs, the school sits on 205 acres of forested land in the San Jacinto Mountains. Academy students receive a challenging college preparatory academic curriculum while engaging in pre-professional training in their chosen arts discipline. The school is also home to its world-renowned summer program that serves children starting at age 5 through adults age 95. Idyllwild Arts believes that art is the greatest teacher of humanity and that the practice of creativity, no matter the ultimate expression, hones each individual's desire and ability to craft global change. To learn more, visit idyllwildarts.org. Use code OneWorld2021 to receive a $50 discount to the 2021 summer program. Quantities are limited, restrictions apply. At Idyllwild Arts, we believe that art is the greatest teacher of humanity and that the practice of creativity hones each individual's desire and ability to craft global change. Please consider supporting the students of Idyllwild Arts and visit idyllwildarts.com/giving to make a gift today.
This is One World, One Idyllwild, the series, presented by Idyllwild Arts Foundation. My name is Pamela Jordan. My guest today is Thanh Bui, an award-winning Australian-Vietnamese singer-songwriter with numerous gold records and #1 hit songs. Thanh has returned to Vietnam to build an ecosystem from education to arts and culture to media. Why did you feel it was time to move back to Vietnam and to really share yourself as an artist at that time?
It just, like I said before, having begun to connect with my roots, I just had this pull, this pull back to my home, to the homeland, and to retrace my steps and to sort of really find out who I was, and I did. After Idol, I did a show in America called Paris by Night, which is a very famous Vietnamese variety show that I think has won some Emmys and all that kind of stuff. And I did the show, and Paris by Night '96, and I remember very, very clearly. And I sang a song called Mirror, Mirror, which was for the first time in my life I'd sung half Vietnamese, half English. And the response was, it was out of this world. Like I thought, when I hear back the recording in Vietnamese, I'm not sure whether people actually understood what I said, because I still don't understand what I said. Did they feel sorry for me? But I can't listen to that because my Vietnamese is horrible. And it was because of that song that in Vietnam everyone started to. It kind of blew up in Vietnam, and I was so humbled by that. And then they, a lot of the producers, the artists, they called me and they said, "Thanh, come back to Vietnam and see what it's like back in the homeland." And I thought, what the, really? Like, I'd never been back as an adult, So I literally said, you know what? I'm just going to go back. And then my mother said, once again, she goes, "Don't go back." And Dad says to me, "We almost died 3 times getting out to give you a new life. What are you doing going back?" And that really hit home, Pamela. That's like, whoa, this sense of the because Mum and Dad don't talk very much about the war. They don't talk about their experiences. And I just realized that pain is still there. They haven't quite moved on yet, And once again, just being the very hard-headed boy that I am, I said, you know what? I'm going back. It doesn't matter. And so literally 2 weeks later, bought a plane that had no return date. I went back, I met up with everyone, and things happened in a way it was very serendipitous. And then Unforbidden happened, which was the first single which was the lead single of my first album. But that was also the theme song for the movie Để Mai Tính, which became at that time the biggest movie in Vietnam box office-wise. And so it was just all of a sudden, biggest box office, biggest song of the country, boom, second song I'd sung in Vietnamese in my life. And I'm like, okay, something's going on that I can't explain. There's a bit of magic going on. So I should listen to my heart and just, really start to sort of, find out who I am. And that's what I did. Yeah.
So in 2013, you founded Soul Music and Performing Arts Academy. In 2016, you founded Asia Music and Performing Arts Education. And in 2017, you founded Embassy Education Group. You are an extremely successful singer-songwriter. Why have you turned your attention to arts education?
Wow. Thank you, Pamela. When I came back and I had, very fortunate to have that success, it made me think about, why there are not other artists like this. And at that time, I was working very closely with the Koreans and I'd worked with the Japanese and with some of the top groups over there, and had the chance to work with BTS. Wrote their first single off their first international album that made them go worldwide. I thought, what's going on in Vietnam? I'm Vietnamese. I'm coming back to Vietnam. What can I do to help my industry and to bring Vietnamese talent outside of Vietnam? And if in Vietnam there's a saying, "Sướng ca vô lại," and what that means, if you can't become white collar, you become blue collar. If you can't become blue collar, you become an artist. So we are literally on the lowest rung of society. There's no respect for artists here. We don't stand with the presidents. I mean, the inauguration the other day with President Biden, you had Jennifer Lopez, you had Lady Gaga. I mean, artists throughout the world, we are the speakers of truth. We are the most authentic, expression of the day, of the times. And so I realized that this is, far deeper than standing, on a stage in front of 50,000 people. I really love teaching because that was something which I'd always done throughout my life. And I decided at that time in Australia, I had schools and organizations. I thought, you know what, if I'm going to do this, it's all in or all out, And so I closed everything in Australia, came back to Vietnam, and we opened Soul because at that time I felt the industry was so soulless. It was, there was no musicianship. There was very little writing going on, storytelling, and then I realized why. Because the first music that came into Vietnam was in the early 90s. So I sat back and I asked my wife, darling, what's the very first Western music that you listened to? And she goes, Backstreet Boys. That is their reference point. Backstreet Boys is their reference point. And then I thought, wow, so you don't know Michael Jackson? She goes, who's Michael Jackson? You don't know Stevie. You don't know, the Temptations. You don't know, all of that stuff. And she goes, who are they? Wow. And then I realized that the Vietnamese industry is literally only 20 years old. Post-war, Vietnam was still closed. And then in the 90s, the government opened up. And our industry is so young. So this was our opportunity, my opportunity to do something to better build infrastructure. And I believe that education is the key pillar of building the future for our young people. And that's why soul and education, arts education, because I believe that with a population of almost 100 million people and 60% of us are under 30, we have such incredible, incredible potential as a country to contribute to the world. And when I have had the opportunity to travel internationally, people still think of Vietnam as a country that's still war-torn, that they still think that we don't have internet, and that doesn't make me upset or anything. It just makes me think that there's incredible opportunity for Vietnam to rebrand itself, to position itself as the tiger of the East, as a country with so much potential. And that's why arts education, because I believe that through the arts, there's no greater communicator of our culture, of our contribution on the world stage than through the mediums of arts.
Well, in addition to arts education, you are also at the forefront of social change and have held ambassadorships with Wilderness Foundation, Wild Aid, and the United Nations. With this, you are linking the arts to education, to industry, and finally society. Why do you think it's important to link society and the arts?
I think it's so important because we are the expression of the society. And I think as artists, we have a role, a responsibility to tell the truth, to be authentic, to be able to raise questions and raise ideas that many people may feel afraid of sharing those ideas. And that's our job. We're the beacon of hope. We are, that's why we have to be so vulnerable and to feel. And so when I do, I'm so passionate about working in society, because the more I'm able to connect with people from all walks of life, it teaches me about sensitivity. It teaches me about compassion. And it teaches me about the power of what the arts can do to be able to affect change. If I just give you one example. Vietnam, unfortunately, is the number one country that uses rhino horn. Not China, not any other country, Vietnam. I mean, think about that for a moment, that the population of rhinos in South Africa, in Africa, is being decimated by the Vietnamese, which is horrible. It's a plight on our country. But through the power of music, to be able to raise that awareness to the young people, they are standing up and they're saying to their parents, Mum and Dad, this is wrong. You should not be doing this, Mum and Dad. And because the elites in Vietnam are the ones that have the means to be able to purchase these products, they will only listen to their children, and it's through them that we make change. So that for me is such a powerful anecdote to the work that we're doing here in Vietnam, is to be able to lift up people's awareness, not I won't say educate people, but to share the right message, but to share it in a medium that is easily accessible and done in a way that people can connect with. And that's what arts does. It connects people with people.
Yes, you have, and I know that our listeners can just hear your optimism and your enthusiasm, and you have such vision. What's next for you?
What's next? I am going to come back as an artist. I'm dying to get back and to finish my album. This album for me is a very important piece of work for me, because it's after Idol, I went on this writing journey. I had the opportunity to work with people like Red One and Wayne Hector, who've together, they've written something like 100 top 10 hits, but it's, I feel like I've given so much of my life to everyone, and I feel like I just need to take a bit of time for me now, to soul search for me, to get back to my own core values, and getting back to music. That's one thing that I really want to do. Secondly, I want to continue on this pathways of education, to continue this pathways, and with the next generation that we're developing, to actually bring them opportunities to go to schools and amazing colleges and arts institutions like yourselves, like Idyllwild, for example, and so that Vietnamese kids can have the opportunity that other kids have at the highest level, so that they can become the best versions of themselves, to have opportunities that they may not get in Vietnam, and then afterwards bring them back to Vietnam to recontribute and have this ecosystem. So I still hope, we can produce Grammy Award winners and Emmy Award winners and all that kind of stuff. It's going to take time, but I absolutely believe. And with the support of people like yourself, Pamela, throughout the years, it's, I know that together we can make things happen.
Thanh Bui, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I wish you the absolute very best on all that you're doing as you move the arts and education forward in Vietnam. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful year ahead. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. My guest today was Thanh Bui, an Australian-Vietnamese singer-songwriter with numerous gold records and #1 hits. He is an ambassador for social change and is founder of Soul Music and Performing Arts Academy, Asia Music and Performing Arts Education, and Embassy Education Group. We'll be right back with my next guest, Wyatt Rosenthal, a senior filmmaker at Idyllwild Arts Academy.
Idyllwild Arts Academy is an independent boarding arts high school whose mission is to change lives through the transformative power of art. Located just 2 hours inland from Los Angeles and San Diego and 1 hour from Palm Springs, the school sits on 205 acres of forested land in the San Jacinto Mountains. Academy students receive a challenging college preparatory academic curriculum while engaging in pre-professional training in their chosen arts discipline. The school is also home to its world-renowned summer program that serves children starting at age 5 through adults age 95. Idyllwild Arts believes that art is the greatest teacher of humanity, and that the practice of creativity, no matter the ultimate expression, hones each individual's desire and ability to craft global change. To learn more, visit idyllwildarts.org. Use code OneWorld2021 to receive a $50 discount to the 2021 summer program. Quantities are limited, restrictions apply. At Idyllwild Arts, we believe that art is the greatest teacher of humanity, and that the practice of creativity hones each individual's desire and ability to craft global change. Please consider supporting the students of Idyllwild Arts and visit idyllwildarts.com/giving to make a gift today.
This is One World, One Idyllwild, the series, presented by Idyllwild Arts Foundation. My name is Pamela Jordan. Today, I'm speaking with Wyatt Rosenthal, a senior in the Film and Digital Media Department at Idyllwild Arts Academy. Wyatt, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I've gotten to know you a little bit over the 3 years. I could bore this audience with meeting you at a restaurant in town, but I've been so impressed with you from the moment I met you. And what stands out to me the most about you is your passion, your will, and your drive. You are so driven. I'm convinced you can be anything you want to be in your mind, but you have decided you want to be a filmmaker. Tell me about your journey that led you here to Idyllwild Arts to pursue that dream.
So from a very young age, I grew up in a household where art was just extremely prevalent constantly. My dad was a visual artist. My two brothers, one wants to be a musician and actually is touring with his band right now, and the other is an aspiring actor in LA. So it was like art was just a constant in my house. And so initially, I wanted to be a writer because I just loved telling stories, and I'd like play imaginary games around my house and whatnot. And as I kind of started to go through this interesting part of my life, you know, dealing with a lot of anxiety, my brother showed me the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And when I watched those movies, I immediately fell in love, and I just fell in love with the combination of all these art forms coming together to like tell this one, you know, grand epic story. And I just like thought, oh my goodness, I have to do this. And so I would take my parents' phone and I'd film myself running around the house, fighting imaginary foes and all sorts of things. And then, you know, this developed into more of a dream of mine, you know, realizing that as I grew older that I could like pursue this and do this for the rest of my life. And I fell in love with that concept. I was just like, that's what I need to do. So I got my first job at 14 so I could buy my first camera. I worked the entire summer and I bought my camera, and then I started making movies. I looked up YouTube videos, anything I could get my hands on. I then started working at a rock gym and bought a drone because I thought drones were the coolest thing in the world. So I bought one of those. And then one summer, my parents and I were driving down to California to meet my brother who was in LA. And they looked at me and they were like, Wyatt, like, you know, so filmmaking, this is something that you want to do. And I said yes. And my parents are some of the most amazing supportive people in the world. So they were like, awesome. Well, there's this school. And I was like, oh, really? And they're like, yes, the school named Idyllwild Arts. And I was like, that sounds interesting. And they at the time thought there was no way that I would want to go to this school because it's a boarding school. And I, you know, going away from home was a big deal for me. And a family friend of ours had gone to Idyllwild previously. And so I said, no, I want to go look at it. And so I toured the campus and I was just like, okay, this is where I belong. This is where I need to be. And then, of course, the application process, being able to afford it, all this stuff, and it all came together. And here I am.
Your story is so remarkable, and you're 18 years old now or something. It's just you just have such drive. You know, when you visited Idyllwild, I think one of the things about it is that we're out here on 205 acres. We're nestled in the San Jacinto Mountains, 6,000 feet. What did it feel like when you came to the campus? Because I think you like to hike, or what was it like when you came to visit the physical campus?
The first thing I noticed when I stepped out of the car was the smell. It's just that smell of like pine needles and like fresh mountain air is just something so unique. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And then I'm just walking around and it's like this, like, you wouldn't think some place like this would exist, you know, way up in the mountains. When we were driving up here for the very first time and going through this tiny town, I was like, so this is a big school. And it was just, it felt like Hogwarts, you know, just like nestled. And it was just, like I said, it just immediately got drawn to it, fell in love with the idea of it, and just seeing that sense of community that everybody had was just probably what really just sparked me.
You know, one thing that's special, I think is special about Idyllwild Arts, I'm sure that everybody does, and that all of the students are just passionate artists from around the world. Everybody is focused, whether they want that after high school or want that as a career or not. Everybody is really immersed. How does it feel to collaborate with your classmates? Which you have to do a lot of that in film.
Yeah, so that's actually probably one of my favorite things. And I've based my senior project this year around collaborating with specifically a music major. And we're creating a concept visual album, which is like a series of songs that all transition into each other. And then I'm shooting the visual component for it as my capstone project. And so it's like a very long, free-flowing music video. And that process is just, it's so awesome. It's like you're working with somebody else who's just as passionate, but at something that you don't really understand. And then they can help you understand it, and you can kind of convey what you're looking for, and then they just make it happen. And it's just so awesome. It's like, I'm trying to find more descriptive words, but it just truly is like a really special, fun experience.
And in the film department, so, you know, you came in as a sophomore and eager to go, but I'm sure a little intimidated by some of the seniors who were here. How do you work with the other students in the department, especially as you see some of the incoming students, some of the newer students? You know, what's your role in the department? How do you do that?
Yeah, so just like you said, when I came into that department, it was definitely a little intimidating. I knew nothing, and I'm grateful that I knew nothing, because that definitely gave me a very open mindset coming in there. And this one particular postgrad took me under his wing, and he taught me so much and became one of my closest and first friends at Idyllwild. And you know, I made so many movies with him, even outside of the department. And I've just really kind of tried to base my relationship with new students off of how he treated me, of just welcoming me in, you know, without a second thought, teaching me everything he knows, and, you know, just showing me the passion and how far you can go in this school, which is, you know, making stuff that's on professional level. And that if you showed to a studio, you know, they might think that it was made by a bunch of adults and not even think that it was a student film, because there's definitely like this stereotype of, oh, that's a student film. It looks good, but you can tell it's a student film. I don't really see that at Idyllwild. You know, the quality of work that comes out of here is extraordinary, and the people who come here know that, and they just want to continue to create that quality of work. And yeah.
You know, I'm going to out you a little bit here, Wyatt, because I think you're being modest. The first film you made at Idyllwild Arts was Child of Society, and the film was accepted into the All-American High School Film Festival, which is the premier destination. And I looked this up. The premier destination for talented high school filmmakers and media arts enthusiasts from around the world. And your first film here at Idyllwild Arts got in. How did it feel to be validated by professionals in the field like that?
I definitely had to read the email about 5 times because I didn't really believe it. I mean, of course, it felt amazing. I had a lot of conflicting feelings. I think, funny enough, there was this kind of notion of, do I deserve this? Because of really all my classmates who made it happen was, you know, it's not just me on a film set. It's not the director. It's the entire crew, which makes everything happen. So, and initially before COVID hit, we were all going to take a field trip down there, the whole crew who worked on it, and go see the premiere. And that was really exciting, but of course that didn't end up happening. But yeah, I don't know. I felt really good, but, definitely, a little strange. It's like, whoa, this is real now, I guess. It's like, this isn't just a dream anymore. this could be real. And I guess that was really, really amazing.
And did you write the script? You
I
wrote
did.
the screenplay?
Yeah.
So let me ask you about it. It's a film that I watched again, right, in preparation for this, but I remember seeing it in Loman Hall, I think, on a big screen, seeing it. And again, the film is Child of Society. It's very powerful. I can't play it because there's no dialogue, so our audience wouldn't hear anything. But tell us about that. It was really, really powerful. Tell us about the story.
Yeah. So my prompt to write this script was around a 2-minute piece that had a dramatic decision within it, and no dialogue. So I started thinking about that. And, at that time in my life, and I'd say every high schooler's life, school shootings were in the media a lot. And that, that's a very scary prospect to anybody who goes to high school and to any school really. And so I found it so difficult, and I still do, with what I see in the media now, is wrapping my head around how somebody my age could take life away from people. And I, would be watching the news, and I just see this just consistent cycle of, negative, horrible headlines that so many young people are being exposed to. And just this desensitization within myself that I felt towards these headlines, where to a certain point, I wasn't feeling the way I felt like I should be feeling. And so I took all of those conflicting emotions and I wrote a script, kind of embodying what it's like to be a child in this day and age, and how the media treats violence in our world, and how we're exposed to violence on a regular basis. And just, how that can affect somebody.
Well, the script is just brilliant. I thought the film was just brilliant and so powerful. And especially to happen, I didn't realize that was the prompt. And so for that to happen in 2 minutes, it's I hope it makes it to the big screen, and I hope you don't expand 1 second past those 2 minutes, because it's just perfect. Let me ask you a question that I've heard. I hear you filmmakers say all the time, is getting, my film has been greenlit, and again, a part of that pre-professional experience. What does that mean, and how hard is it to get your film greenlit?
So essentially, getting a film greenlit is just a stamp of approval. Essentially, getting a film greenlit is the department's way of, interpreting and showing us what goes on in the industry. So, in the real world, outside of a school setting, you take your scripts and pitch presentation to a studio, and you pitch it to them, and they decide if they want it to get made or not. So that's what we do in the department. First we write our script, and then we create a very detailed, in-depth presentation with visual references. I think you came to a pitch presentation last year.
I did. I was blown away. I couldn't believe all the work that went into that.
Yeah. So, a genre reel, video storyboard, just all sorts of examples to help convey your vision to the faculty and to the other students, and get them excited about it and getting them wanting to make your film. And so then the faculty in this case, or the studio outside of Idyllwild, would go and deliberate. And then more often than not here, they come back and they say, awesome. Well, either we're gonna, orange light this, yellow light this, and can you tweak these few things and then get back to us, or perfect, greenlit, you're going into pre-production, we're gonna make this movie. So that's kind of what that means.
And how did that feel the first time that the department told you they greenlit one of your films?
I was actually surprised, because I didn't think they were gonna like my idea. And I'm still not sure they totally loved it, but it felt good. It felt really good. And so just another one of those moments of validation, and just having to not tell myself not to question myself and just continue to forge on ahead.
Well, Wyatt, you're graduating in a few months. I don't even want those words to come out of my mouth. I can't imagine Idyllwild Arts without you. You've been such a force and just so wonderful. But as you kind of think back on your 3 years here, what will you take with you? What will you miss?
Oh, I'll miss a lot. I'm going to miss my friends a lot. And especially, I'd say my roommate, Elijah, he was the first person I met here. And from that moment, we've been best friends. And that's one of the special things about Idyllwild is I didn't really have a lot of really good friends before I came here. And then just to immediately, get somebody that amazing in your life is just, I can't express how lucky I feel when it comes to that. I'm going to take with me the sense of community and the teamwork because, especially within the film department, filmmaking is such a team sport. It is never about the individual. It is always about the crew as a whole. And that's how it's like in the industry. And I think that's also just an important way to live your life, is treat other people how you want to be treated. And to remember that, it's everything is always so much bigger than you in every moment. So I think that those are some very important life lessons that even separate from filmmaking that I've learned and that I plan to take with me.
That's beautiful and very well said. So next year, I think you're taking a gap year. What are you going to do? Catch up on your sleep after 3 years of high school? What do you have planned?
Yeah, gap year was always something I kind of wanted to do. And I now, especially with COVID, being able to just kind of hopefully ride the rest of this out and then be able to go to college with, of course, it's going to be a new normal, but, little bit more than if I went to college right after leaving here. Recoup, as you said, and I have a few internship opportunities from people I've been talking to in the industry, and might be able to end up working with them. And then, funny as it may seem, a dream of mine has always been to work in Yosemite National Park. So I want to get a job there and hopefully give back to this world in some way. Climb a lot of rocks and maintain trails, do whatever they need me to do.
Wyatt, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I cannot wait to see the indelible mark you're going to leave on this world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a wild ride, and just thank you.
My guest today was Wyatt Rosenthal, a young filmmaker and a 3-year senior at Idyllwild Arts Academy. I spoke with Wyatt via Zoom on March 7th, 2021. You've been listening to One World, One Idyllwild, the series, presented by Idyllwild Arts Foundation. We at Idyllwild Arts have always believed that art is the greatest teacher of humanity. We continue to believe that the practice of creativity hones a person's desire and ability to affect global change. My name is Pamela Jordan.
To learn more about the Academy and its world-renowned summer program, please visit idyllwildarts.org. To subscribe to the One World, One Idyllwild podcast, please visit idyllwildarts.org/the-series.
Join me next time when my guest is Ravita Franklin Bowers, retired head of school of the prestigious Center for Early Education in Los Angeles, California. Ravita and I talked about mentoring hundreds of school leaders throughout her 42-year career, the value of diversity and inclusion in independent schools, and her family's experience during the Black Wall Street Massacre in 1921. I will also speak with Aminta Sky, a senior in the music department at Idyllwild Arts Academy and co-founder of the school's Black Student Union. I hope you'll join us. Thank you for listening to One World, One Idyllwild, the series, a creation and production of Idyllwild Arts Foundation. Executive produced by me, Pamela Jordan. Directed and produced by Rose Colella. Edited, engineered, and mastered by Justin Holmes. Graphic design by Mark Biley. Marketing and publicity by Wendy Winks. Marketing assistance by Rose Colella, Andrew Edwards, and Nick Ryan. Production and research assistance by Keith Miller. Creative consultation by Palencia Turner. Production support by Marianne Kent-Stoll. Technical support by John Lawrence, Michael Quick, and Tom Wadbrook. Our theme song is Beaconing. It was composed and performed by the incomparable Marshall Hawkins.
Pamela Jordan was appointed president of Idyllwild Arts Foundation in 2014. Prior to this position, she held the distinction of being the first female and first African American head of school of the Chicago Academy for the Arts, where she held the position for 12 years. She currently serves on the boards of the California Association of Independent Schools, the Association of Boarding Schools, and Art Schools Network, and is on the Global Education Advisory Council for Shanghai Huer Collegiate School Kanshan. One World, One Idyllwild, the series, is a product of Idyllwild Arts Foundation. Any use of materials, including reproduction, modification, distribution, or republication, without the prior written consent of Idyllwild Arts Foundation is strictly prohibited.